My name is Matt Philippi, and this is a demonstration on how to launch a Zeppelin notebook using Azure HDInsight and use the Azure storage options for that notebook. Here's a basic architecture for that setup. So we have compute, which is an HDInsight Spark cluster. Then we have the storage account supporting that. So there's a couple options here: Azure Blob storage and the Azure Data Lake store. And then we have analytic options that you can launch from within your Spark cluster. So before we launch into this, I just wanted to give a warning. Although we'll talk about security and cost, this demo doesn't include security best practices and cost analysis. It's your job to learn that. So for example, security, I'm going to be using passwords instead of key pairs. Storage costs is pay for what you use. That's not something to worry about as much. Compute cost is a big deal though. So VMs and clusters. Pay for what you provision. Okay, it's not pay for what you use. It's pay for what you provision. Yeah, there is somewhat of an element. There is an element of pay for what you use in that, but the most important thing to know for right now is pay for what you provision. So if you go on vacation and forget to turn off the lights and heating and air conditioning, the power company doesn't care you didn't use it. They'll still bill you for it. If you fire up a cluster and you're done using it, but you don't terminate it, you'll continue to pay for it, and those bills can rack up. So we're going to talk about, we're going to get a data set, pull it down from University of California, Irvine. We're going to log into Azure portal, create a resource group, add some storage accounts, create a data lake store, launch a Spark cluster, launch a Zeppelin notebook, and create a new note. Within that notebook, we're going to create some RDDs, count action, and then write output to storage. Then we're going to save that notebook in a JSON file so we can use it later. We're going to terminate the Spark cluster, so we stop paying for the cluster but still continue to pay for the storage. We'll then launch another cluster. We'll use our existing storage accounts and that JSON file that we saved. And then when we're all done, we're going to terminate the complete resource group. So we'll delete all the resources and then we'll stop paying for everything. Step one, we need a data set. So University of California, Irvine has some good data sets. Machine learning repository, that's what I googled. So I'm going to go out here to data sets. I already found a data set that I like, so I'm going to do a Control F. It's called Home. And then I'm going to just tab down until I find it. So gas sensors for home monitoring. Here's a machine learning project, 100 recordings of sensor data. So they took the recordings, and depending what they did, there was either background, wine, or banana, and then they ran the data through machine learning, and then the idea is to collect more data and then see if the machine learning can predict what whether it was background, wine, or banana. But we're not going to talk about that at all. I just want the data set. So I'm going to go to data folder here. Then I'm going to download this HT sensor UCI submission zip. There it goes. Okay, that's downloaded. Okay, I'm not going to talk about really anything here, so about the data itself, open it up. So I just want the file. So I'm going to extract the file. And then the file that I want is right here, and I'm going to create 3 files. So the first one, I'm going to actually just rename it. I'm going to call it default file. And this is just the metadata, so there's 101 rows in here. Okay, then I'm going to copy it and create a couple more. Okay, then I'm going to rename the next one NonDefault file. And I'm going to name the third one Data Lake file. Okay, and then I don't want these files to all be the exact same, so I'm just going to open up the non-default file here. I'm going to take some rows out of here. I'm going to delete some rows, save it, okay, and close it. And then on the data lake file, I'm going to do the same thing. Open it up. I don't want 101 rows here, so yeah, just delete some of these. Make sure you delete the complete row. Okay, now I'm going to save that, close it, close it. Okay, now I have 1, 2, 3 files. Default file, non-default file, data lake file, They are all should be different sizes. So yep, default file is the biggest one, 4, 3, and 1. Now that we have our 3 files here, the next step is to log into the Azure portal. We're going to go to the dashboard. So Google Azure portal. Another thing here is I'm using Chrome. Normally I would use Edge. I really like Edge, but since we're going to be using Zeppelin, I prefer to use Chrome. Edge is a newer product. I'm sure Zeppelin has been developed and tested in Chrome, so I know it works really good. So I'm going to click in the Azure portal. I'm going to follow the login instructions. I'm going to pause it while I do that. I am now logged into my dashboard, and anytime you want to get to the dashboard, you just click up here in the upper left hand corner. Now we're going to create a resource group called Spark Zeppelin Demo. Resource groups are really important. They keep all of the different services you provision together in a group, so it makes them easy to organize, manage, and then ultimately when you're done with it, delete it and stop paying for everything. So click on resource groups. Okay, back to my dashboard. Resource groups. It's the cube. Add. Spark Zeppelin Demo. I am on pay-as-you-go because I burned through all my Azure Pass credits. So if you have credits, then you should use those. I am on pay-as-you-go. I'm not going to change this. East US 2, pin to the dashboard. For this exercise, always pin everything to the dashboard and then create. And it's provisioning. Okay, it's already provisioned, successful. I'm going to go back to my dashboard, and then I can see it right here. So as I provision stuff, you're going to see it pop up in here. Now that we have our resource group, we are going to add services to it. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to create storage here. So we have compute, analytics, and storage. Okay. One of the reasons why we're going to do storage is first is because we don't want to start a Spark cluster and then add the storage, because we're going to be paying for the Spark cluster and we're not going to be using it because we don't have any storage. So do the storage first. Do everything first that you can do before you launch a cluster is my recommendation. So we're going to create Azure Blob storage. There's the storage account. Let's go right here. So go back to the dashboard. On the left hand side, storage accounts. I'm going to add a storage account. Spark Zeppelin Demo. Okay, no changes there, no changes there, no changes there. Encryption, no changes. I'm going to use that resource group that I just created. Spark Zeppelin Demo. East US 2, pin to dashboard, create. Okay, this will take, I don't know, less than a minute. Okay, you'll get a message saying deployment was successful. Ignore this here for a second. Go back to our dashboard, hit the refresh button, and then you'll see in the resource group we just added a storage account. This is actually a tile for the resource itself. Don't need that, it's redundant now. So I'm going to delete that. And then we're going to go in and add 2 containers to our storage account. So I'm going to click on the storage account. I'm going to scroll down to the left hand side there, find containers, and then I'm going to come up here and do plus container. Okay, I'm going to create one called default. Okay, I'm just going to use container for now as the access type. Create. And then I'm going to create another one called NonDefault. And then I'm going to upload the files that we created earlier. So I'm going to start with the default container. I'm going to select upload, and then I'm going to go to the downloads here, and then remember, so I want the file name default file. So default container, default file, upload. Okay. I'm going to scroll back over here to the containers. I'm going to go to the non-default container. I'm going to do another upload. Then I'm going to get the non-default file and then upload that. Okay, great. And then we're done with our storage accounts for right now. Now we're going to add a different storage service called Azure Data Store. If I go back here, you can see we have storage here. We have Azure Blob storage right here, but then we have another service called Azure Data Lake Store. We're going to set that up. So go back to your dashboard, go to New, Azure Data Store. Actually, it's just Data Lake Store. My mistake. Data Lake Store, not Data Analytics, not Data Lake Analytics. It's Data Lake Store. There's the Analytics. You don't want that. Different. Store. Click on that. Click on Create. I call this one, this Data Lake Store, called Spark Zeppelin Demo. I will be using pay-as-you-go, but use credits if you have them. Use the resource group that we created called Spark Zeppelin Demo. East location, pricing, pay-as-you-go, encryption, turn it off. Okay. Pin it to the dashboard, create. It'll take less than 30 seconds to deploy. Deployment successful brings you to this screen right here. So go back to the dashboard real quick. I'm going to hit refresh, and in my resource group now we'll see we have a data lake. So we have a storage, Azure Blob storage, and a data lake now. Separate tile for data lake. I'm going to get rid of that, redundant. Then I'm going to click here, go back into my data lake. I'm going to go to Data Explorer, and I want to upload that file, my data lake file. So go to Upload, right here, click this button, then I have my data lake file open, add selected files, file successfully uploaded. So we're done there. Okay, we're set on storage here. So let's just quickly go back up to the top. We've done our storage down here. Blob storage, containers, data lake store. Time to launch the cluster. Okay, so back to our dashboard. New, search HDInsight. I want the orange HDInsight with the elephant. I'm going to create Spark Zeppelin Demo. Okay. Cluster configuration is important. So I want Spark, and I want 1.63 3.5. Why? Because I know Zeppelin is on this. I'm not sure Zeppelin is launched with this configuration on the other versions. It doesn't mean you don't have access to it, but you have to do some additional configuration. Here it is, comes automatically. Select credentials. Two types of credentials. One to log into the UI, Ambari or Zeppelin. You're going to want to remember this one. I'll stick with the default username here. I'm going to put in my password. And then if you want to log into the machine itself down here, you have to provide a username. We're not going to do that for this demonstration. This is the platform as a service, so I'm not exactly sure what you get access to, but this is irrelevant right now. What we need to do is remember this, because we'll be using this to log into Zeppelin later, and if you want to log into Ambari. select data source. Okay, we're going to do both Azure Storage and Data Lake Store, but we're going to use Azure Storage as the primary storage type, so we'll keep that there. This is already defaulted to that storage account that we created earlier, and then you can specify a default container within that storage account. So we created a container called default. So we have a container named default, which is going to serve as the default container for the Spark cluster. East US2, that's fine. Okay, we're going to do the Data Lake Store. We're going to create a new service principal. I'll just call this one Demo Spark Service Principal. You have to create a password. Okay. Create. Okay. Now the next thing we're going to want to do here is come in here. So we created the Demo Spark Service Principal. We're going to want to create access. Okay. Select this Data Lake Store. Select. Okay. Then we're going to want to run the permissions. Completed. Done. Okay. Select. Select again. Okay. Now we're at cluster size. Okay, big one. So we're going to pick our cluster size. Okay. There's way too much here for our purposes, so I'm going to change this to 2 worker nodes. These VMs are too big. $6.49 an hour. That's a lot for our purposes here. So I'm going to go into the worker nodes. Right now it's saying $1.24 a node. So it's defaulting to the D4 V2 $1.24 right here. So we're going to go into view all, use D3, 62 cents, select. I'm going to do the same thing with the head nodes. Okay, recommended. Okay, yeah, right. We're going to go to view all, find D3, select. And that's going to bring it down to $2.49 an hour. I'll pause it here and do some math. Okay, well that works out to, let's see here, that works out to, let's see here, $60 a day, or $1,800 a month, or roughly $21,900 a year. Okay, but that's not everything. There's other things that you'll pay for too, but just for the compute cost itself. So if you leave it on, you're going to be burning a lot of money. On the other hand, if you actually are using all of this and you leave it on the whole time and you are using it the whole time at your organization, then $22,000 a year might not be so bad. Okay, so let me just talk about that again real quick. Pricing, what you need to know is that billing starts once a cluster is created, it stops when it is deleted. So I think during the provisioning process you're not getting charged, but once it's ready to go, the clock starts ticking, and it is prorated per minute. So something you definitely need to understand and learn how to do. So for our purpose, I'm going to try to use, let's see here, $2.49 an hour. Hey, we might use 30 minutes, so I might use $1. I'm going to pay for it. If I had credits, it'd only be $1, so that's fine. So remember, 2 nodes, D3, D3, select, and then we're ready to go. I'm going to pin to the dashboard. I'm going to create, and this will go out to the dashboard. This one, oh, I have an error. It doesn't like something. What did I do? I didn't use the resource group. Same Spark Zeppelin resource group. Okay, great. create. So it should deploy this time. Okay, submitting deployment. Probably take upwards of 20 minutes. The Spark HDInsight cluster successfully deployed, which brought me to this screen right here. So I'm going to go back to my dashboard here. You can see in the resource group, the HDInsight is here. There was actually a tile here before I deleted that. So back at the dashboard, just if you don't see it here, and I actually moved this up here, click the refresh button, and then you'll see all three of our resources in there. So let's go to, going back to our architecture here, we've done the storage, we've now done the compute HDInsight cluster, now we have the analytics, which we can get to from the HDInsight cluster, the Zeppelin notebook and the Jupyter notebook, and we're going to do Zeppelin. So the next step here, we just launched the HDInsight cluster. Now we're going to launch a Zeppelin notebook. So I'm going to go back to this screen. Okay. Cluster dashboards. Okay. Okay. Zeppelin. I don't know why it's all the way over here. Usually it pops up and it's on this side, but somehow it's popping up over here. Strange. Okay. You'll have to add the cluster username and the password. I've already logged in, so but remember it's admin and then whatever password you put. Sometimes it's going to be finicky and it doesn't work and you get error messages and you just have to refresh the browser, cancel out. But normally if you click Zeppelin notebook, it'll bring you to the log. There'll be a login pop-in. As long as you enter your credentials correctly, it will bring you directly to this screen right here. From here we're going to create a new note. So create new note, put the name. I'm going to call this UCI Home Sensor Data. Create a note, which brings me to this screen right here. And now we're ready to do some work. So rather than type everything out, I've already created a script here that I'm going to use. And then just go through this real quickly. So what we're really interested here is in the paths and getting access to the storage. Not so much, this isn't a tutorial on RDDs and data frames and Python and SQL and so forth. So we're going to do something really simple here, okay? We're going to, let me comment this out here. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to create an RDD using these paths. I've commented these two out to get a count. Okay, so the first thing to know is the easiest one to do is the ADL, because you can actually go copy it from the Azure Data Lake store. So sensor data RDD equals Spark context dot text file, and then I'm going to actually go out to Azure Data Lake to get the path. So what we're interested in this path right here. Actually, we're interested in the full path. So we're going to get the Data Lake file. So go to my dashboard, go to Azure Data Lake, go to Data Explorer. Data Lake file is highlighted. I can go to Properties, and then right here you'll see a path, and then I can copy that path. So it starts with ADL. I'm going to copy it. I don't know, I usually click 3 times or something like that. That seems to be the magic. And I'm going to paste that in here. Okay. So that's our input file. These are commented out. I'm actually going to uncomment these two so it'll give us a count, and then I'm going to run this. And it's going to be Shift Enter. So the first time through it's going to take a few seconds, so I'll pause. Okay, just under a minute for that complete. So that said 85 rows. So remember, on the default file, the original file, the metadata file we downloaded from University of California, Irvine, had 101 lines, but we deleted some of the lines for some of these files. So this one now has 85 lines. Okay, so the Azure Data Store link works perfectly there. I'm going to comment that out, and I'm going to do the next one here. So this is the default container in the storage account. So the path for that is WASB, W-A-S-B, colon, backslash, backslash, the name of the container, which we called NonDefault, at the name of the storage account, Spark Zeppelin demo, so it's kind of like an email address, .blob, .core, .windows, .net, and then the actual file to the path. So if I go out here to go to my dashboard, go to this account, okay, find the container, scroll down here, containers, go to non-default, okay, and then so this is the only file in here in the non-default container. There's no folders, there's no anything. So I'm going to go the path to the container, the storage account .blob.core, backslash, and then this is non-default file.dat, which matches here, non-default file.dat. You cannot, there's no copy like in Azure Data Store. It's just a HTTPS URL. There's no WASB. It'd be nice if they did a WASB. So we're going to run this one right here. Okay, I'm going to do Shift Enter to run the paragraph. Okay, that one took 22, that one has 22 lines and it took less than 1 second. So that was the non-default container. Finally, I'm going to comment this one out. We're going to get to the default container. So remember in Spark, we set a default container on the configuration. So I'm going to go to the Spark cluster here. I'm going to go down to storage, and it's going to tell me the storage account for the Spark cluster here, HDInsight cluster, Spark's demo, and then for the default container we used a container named default. Okay. Here's the thing. You don't need, basically all it is when you're using the default container assigned to storage. I'm going to copy this. It's really simple. Okay. You don't need any of this path right here. So you delete it. Now you got 3 backslashes because Spark knows what the default container is. It just assumes. So now we got to change this file to the default file. Okay. So here's the only thing that's kind of strange here. So if we go back to our storage accounts, let's go take a look at the default container. This is why I don't really, this is a little weird. So storage accounts, go to my container, go to default. Okay. Here's everything in the default container. When we created that Spark cluster, it created a whole bunch of folders. So there's folders and files in here for samples and tutorials, and it really just cluttered it up. It's good if you're doing the samples and the tutorials, but as a matter of practically speaking, here's our data file, or a default file that we put up at the very beginning, but all this other stuff was created when we create the cluster. So here's the path to the default file. I didn't create a folder for that, so it's just WASB 3/ default file.dat. Okay, we're going to run that. And this should be 101 because this is the one we didn't modify, 101. So we're good there. So the only weird thing is I guess this is an efficiency thing, but I think it's weird. It would just be better if it was consistent. It would be better if it was consistent, and it's just weird that all of a sudden this default file has all of this stuff in here. It's not practical if you're in production. Like for training, it's great. Okay, now we're going to write to the storage account. This is a little backwards here. So we're going to do the same thing. Okay. So I'm going to comment out the counts. We don't want to do that anymore. We're going to start up here again. Okay. So write to storage. Okay. So it's sensor data RDD, which we create up here. Got this backwards. Okay. And then it's the same exact path as up here, with the exception of at the backslash, instead of specifying the input file, we specify the output file right here. So output underscore datalake.txt. So why don't we do this? I'm going to run this now. This one is going to create the RDD. This one's going to save. Shift Enter to run the paragraph. Okay. I'm going to do it again. Okay, I'm going to come out this one, do the second line here, do the second line. Okay, run it again. It didn't like that, so need to figure out what's wrong here. Comment that out. There we go. Okay, much better. Comment this one out. Comment this one out. And then run. Okay. Alright, so let's go out and check it out here. Go out to my dashboard. Let's go check out the data lake. Go to my data explorer. Okay, output data lake. Data lake actually has a preview so you can see it. So it actually split this in two pieces. You can see it right here. That's what was written. Okay, now let's go out to the storage account. Let's actually do that one more time. Data lake, data explorer. There is the output right there that we just wrote to. Okay, now let's go look at our storage account. So storage account, Spark Zeppelin demo. We're going to go look at the first container, which is the default container. And we're going to have to hunt for it because all of this stuff is in here. Okay, here's the folder that was created. Output default folder, and here's the files themselves. If we open this up, we'll see data in there that was written, that was just written. Okay, go back. Let's go look at our non-default. This is going to be cleaner. I don't see anything in here, so I'm going to refresh it. There it is, output non-default text file. There's the files themselves. Okay, we've done our work, and now we want to save it. So we just launched the Zeppelin notebook. We did Spark RDDs, and now we want to save the Zeppelin notebook, and it'll get saved as a JSON file so we can use it later after we terminate and restart the cluster. Simple. Come up here, export notebook. There it goes. Went to my download folder, and it's now saved. The only thing I wish is I could save it out to an object store, my Azure storage account, instead of my local. So I'm sure there's a way to do that. I just don't know how to do it. Okay, so we just saved our work. Now we're done, and we want to terminate the Spark cluster. We're done using it for now, but we want to save our work and use our work later. So we're just going to terminate the cluster. Remember what I said, $1,800 a month if you accidentally leave it on, or $60 a day, so $400 plus dollars a week. So we will come out here, go to our dashboard, Spark Zeppelin demo HDInsight cluster. Okay, there's one thing I want to do before we do this, and it's go to the Azure Data Lake store. Data Lake Access, download certificate. So we'll want that for when we restart the cluster again. So that just got downloaded to my hard drive again. Spark Zeppelin demo certificate. Okay, we're okay there. Oh, back to the Azure dashboard. Okay, I'm going to delete. So this is going to delete only the cluster. The storage will still be there. The Azure Data Lake will still be there. Yes. So So this takes a few minutes to delete. The cluster is deleted. Okay, it's finished. And we're back out at the dashboard. So if you're still seeing it in here in your resource group, go up and refresh the browser and it will disappear. Okay, now we terminated, now we want to launch another one. Same steps essentially as before. Go out, HDInsight. We want the Hadoop elephant. There he is. Create. Cluster name. Might as well just use the same one as before. You don't have to. Don't have to. Page you go. Cluster configuration. Spark 16335. Select. Okay. This is your UI login for Zeppelin and Ambari. Don't forget it. If you want to SSH into the machine itself, and then you put credentials here. Data source. So it automatically provisioned that storage account that we have. So we just wanted to change the default container. So we're going to use the container name default as the default container. We're going to go to Data Lake Store. Okay, so I tried the certificate before, and for whatever reason the password's not working on the certificate. I'd have to go back and recreate everything. I'm not going to do that, but it's really simple. If you want to use the existing, you go out, select Service Principal, go out and find the one that you created before, upload the certificate, and then put in the password. We're going to have to create a new certificate for this to work. But in practice, you're not going to be creating principals. This is, an administrator function for them to give you rights to do this. So I'm going to create new again. New Spark demo principal certificate password. Apparently, the one that I created before wasn't working. Not sure why. So I'm going to create that. Okay, it's happy. I'm going to click Access here. I'm going to find my Spark Zeppelin demo permissions. Okay, that's good. I'm going to select that. I'm going to run the permissions against that. Running. Completed, successful, done. Okay, so now I'm back here. Data Lake Store Access. Okay, select. Okay, now we're back at the storage accounts. So our storage accounts are good. Default container, Data Lake Store setup, new Spark demo principal. Okay, cluster size. Remember we want 2. Okay, view all, optimized, select. Head nodes. Okay, view all, D3, select. Now we're back down to our 249 an hour. Select a resource group, use the existing one. We're going to use the Spark Zeppelin demo. Okay, I'm going to pin it to the dashboard, create, and then another 20 minutes to create the cluster. So submitting deployment. Okay, we've relaunched the cluster, successfully provisioned. I'm going to go back to my dashboard. Okay, I can see the tile here. It's not showing up in my resource group. Refresh my browser. Now it's in my resource group. This tile is redundant, so I'm going to delete that. Okay, I'm going to go into the Spark cluster. I'm going to go into my cluster dashboard. I want to go to Zeppelin. on Zeppelin notebook. Interesting, I didn't have to go through the UI. Interesting. I didn't have to go through the credentials, the login. Okay, so anyway, here's the file that I had downloaded previously when I had the JSON file when I finished my work. So I imported that right here. So I did import note, then I picked the file. Here I am. Now I should be able to just run this as it was before. So I'm going to, instead of do the write, I want to do the counts. So uncomment the counts, these two. Let's start with the data lake, see how the data lake does. Okay, so for starting up, take a few seconds. Okay, after about 60 seconds it came back with 85. Okay, now we'll run the non-default container with the non-default file. Should be a lot faster. Shift enter. That gave us 22. Okay. So then let's go back here. We'll run this one. The default container for the Spark cluster, 101. So, perfect. So as you can see, once we had launched our, since we had our storage all set up and our JSON file saved from our previous notebook, all we had to do is really spend about less than a minute relaunching the Spark cluster. The storage is already set up. We imported the Zeppelin notebook so we could get working real quickly again. Okay, so we just launched another Spark cluster. Now we're done working. Okay, we want to get rid of everything. We want to make sure that we're not paying for anything. So I'm going to go back to the dashboard here. So we could go through and we could delete each one of these individually, but what's really nice here and potentially dangerous is we can actually go into this resource group. Okay, and you can actually get to your resources group from here. Okay, I got a lot of them here. So I'll just go back to my dashboard. I'm going to click on this resource group right here. Okay, and then I'm going to delete the whole entire resource group. Spark Zeppelin demo resource group. It's going to delete all of this stuff. So no more cluster, no more storage. If I do this and I want to start over again, I'm going to have to go back to square one and redo everything. But at the same time, I know that I won't be charged for any of these resources once I hit delete. Deleting all of them. Okay, good news. Everything's deleted. This resource group is deleted. Even the name of the resource group is deleted. So I'm just going to hit refresh in the browser. And it's going to show that nothing is there anymore. So all the resources are gone. We're not paying for anything. On the other hand, if we want to recreate it, we got to do everything from the beginning. So that concludes the steps, 12 steps. Generally takes about 30 to 40 minutes, but really it brings a massive amount of compute power with some great analytics tools to your fingertips. You just have to learn how to configure it. You have to learn about cost. You have to learn about security, but it's something that just simply didn't exist 10 years ago, and then all sorts of different users, if they learn to do this, can really do some great things. Again, my name's Matt Philippi, and feel free to reach out if you have any questions or to connect with me via LinkedIn. Thank you.